This is the Conrad Alert. Civil defense information will be broadcast at 6:40.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Y2K, how can we prepare?
Stop a few of their machines and radios. Throw them into darkness for a few hours.
We are fighting for our lives. My family must survive.
For 5 years, 1,000 gallons of gas, air filtration, water filtration.
Coming at you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada, streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, and Odyssey. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I'm Toolman Tim. Today is July 30th, 2023. This is episode 346 of Workshop Radio. How the hell is everyone out there this evening? We're going to have a great round table. Going to make a rule right now. Absolutely no meat jokes whatsoever. I'm really sorry about that, but I just figured we'd get that out of the way right away. No, anyway, so we'll bring these fine gentlemen on in just a minute. And before that, let's get the announcements out of the way. First off, it's Sunday evening, so we got to remember our sponsor, and that is the very inspirational Mrs. Amy Dingman of A Farmer's Kind of Life. She's just an incredible lady who's been podcasting longer than I have, and she has the way of telling you what you need to hear, telling you the hard truth, but saying it with a smile, making you accept it, even though you're thinking, I really don't want to do that. So if you're looking to kind of fill yourself up with some, bite-sized inspiration, put A Farmer's Kind of Life in your podcast feed. This week's episode, Amy dives into the concept of finding yourself, which is great because I can get lost in my own home. So I think I should probably listen to that one. Number 2, guys, Telegram group. That's where all the cool kids hang out, except when they're here listening to the live stream, chilling for Workshop Radio. So if you are not on Telegram, do yourself a favor and absolutely come by and join it. Just give it a shot. If you hate it, you can delete it. But I'm telling you, you will not regret coming by and joining your fellow delinquents at the Telegram group. Links in the description below. And finally, we have the Self-Reliance Fest. 2 days. That's all we have left for early bird tickets. After that, the price goes up $20. So grab that from the link tonight. If you want, use my affiliate link. If you don't, doesn't matter. We're all going to be there. I think a couple of the guys that are in the show with me this evening are going to be there. So let's bring them all on. Give me 1 second. See if we can make this work. We were playing with some funny frames earlier, and I think we accidentally activated God mode. I'm not sure what happened there. So this is, I never really said this in my intro, but this is the first of hopefully many different types of roundtables. I figure I've spent the last 2 years, 350 episodes interviewing some of the craziest people out there, some of the most knowledgeable, and there's Kyle too, so we're good. Yeah. And
I get to tag along.
Yeah, always. Yeah. But I've made a lot of friends. We've created an incredible community. And I thought, let's spice things up a bit. Let's bring a bunch of experts on and we'll just chat and see what happens. So I figured we'd get these 3 guys on to beat the meat around. There, I broke the seal. So let's bring them on.
Perfect.
So we're going to go around the horn, boys. And we'll start with Adam, then Josh, then Kyle. Just give us the 2-3 minute introduction to who you are and how you get into working with livestock and meat and that sort of thing.
Hey, my name is Adam Rick. I run Modern Frontier Farms. I'm just here to chew the fat with a bunch of really cool guys. Every time a pun comes up, everyone, you have to drink. Just that's the new rule here. We're all going to be drunk by the end of this, right?
Oh, no.
Anyways,
I'm going to be so hydrated.
So I'm over here in southeastern Wisconsin. I just kind of came into this semi on accident, semi just like I always had a passion for nature. And when my friends taught me about regenerative agriculture, I started helping him out with working with animals and seeing the differences in the flavors of meats and everything. That's it was all downhill from there, and here I am now running full-time, growing animals and selling meat. So thanks for having me on here.
I'm excited. And how long you been full-time, Adam?
It's been 19 months full-time.
Nice.
That's not. You can tell you're still in the early stages because it's like when you meet a kid, a new parent, and you're like, "How old's your kid?" 73 and a half months old. You know, they're new, right? So that's I'm glad. I love seeing it, and we'll get into some of the cool stuff you're doing here soon. So, how about you, Renegade?
Hey, y'all. Just a lot of people on here probably already know me, but I never saw such a good group, such a group in the comments over there. So to those who, I know the stakes are high. I gotta chill on the puns, but for the rest of y'all, if you don't know me, nice to meet you. I'm Josh, the Renegade Butcher, Southeast Texas. Do a podcast. I'm on the TSP Expert Council. I just basically come online and talk shit to a bunch of people and try to teach you a little bit about meat, typically from a home processing side. But I've been involved in meat processing for about the last 9 years. Moved to Texas, picked up a side job just doing wild game processing, and it found a new passion, took off from there. Learned as much as I could, got into whole animal butchery, got out of the retail side of it. And from there, kind of progressed to going out on my own, doing mobile slaughter for a while. And now I primarily will do hands-on consultation and training for people who are trying to learn how to do it at home. So, and I do wild game pretty much exclusively in the fall. So, I've started working on my own seasoning blends and stuff like that. Have a pretty active Telegram group. I've not been super active in it lately because I've been running around and dealing with the Texas summers. So I've been burnt out, but getting back into it and glad to be on the show. Roll with it, Kyle.
By the way, we are going to count burnt out as a pun. So that's 3.
Yeah. No, that's 4. That's 4.
Is it 4? No, it is 4.
Yeah. You missed nice to meet you. Yeah.
You guys need to stop ribbing each other. Come on.
That's another good nugget there.
Just cutting me to pieces. This is going to be a long one. This is going to be a real long one. So my name's Kyle Peralt. I am a custom exempt butcher up in Effingham, New Hampshire. Own and operate my own shop. I've been cutting meat since I graduated, or working with meat at least since I graduated high school. Started at a grocery store and apprenticed, then worked my way up to cutter manager and ended up at a U.S.A. facility. And now I'm on my own. We have a slaughterhouse right on our property. Maybe we shouldn't call it a slaughterhouse for the HOA or whatever, but no, I'm just kidding. No, so we have a full custom exempt shop, and we are also in the very beginning stages of kind of going whole hog on raising pigs. So that's, yeah. I wasn't proud of it. I was trying to think of one the entire time, and I'm like,
that worked. I'll give it to you.
All right.
You tried right away. We can't even get through intros, and we're rolling around in the mud.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you say how long you've been on your own, Kyle?
I have been on my own for about right around 19 months, right around that as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah.
You guys both had COVID babies with your businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Josh, if I might have kind of tuned out for a second, did you say how long you've been going
on my own since about 3 years now? But I started mine right in the middle of all the COVID crap too. Nice. It was one of those things. It's about 6 months after it really kicked off. I stepped out and decided to start doing stuff on my own because all the processors got so overloaded. I couldn't have picked a better time really to jump into it.
It was tough. That was a tough period.
Oh yeah, nobody could get anything in. All the little local processors were just overloaded. So when somebody was offering an alternative, I mean, it was not a hard sell.
What was it like in your area, Adam?
It was it was based on my body was just falling apart, and I just decided that hey, I was laid off because it was kind of a slow time here. I'm a HVAC service tech. And long story short, it was just we had the business already going. My wife goes, "Hey, let's get up and go. Let's do this thing." And decided that's okay. If you're gonna do a business, you got to jump in full time. Eventually, otherwise, you're never gonna see your true potential. No. You jump in full time, and it's just like, holy cow. Sorry, didn't mean that one. Can I take that one back?
It just. Don't take back this.
I hope someone has notches Like by the end, we're just going to hold the paper. It's going to be a full sheet of paper.
So yeah, you jump in, and it's amazing what you're actually capable of doing when you actually take the time and commitment to actually making it happen. Part-time business, it's great to start off with, but hey, you got to get in there.
Yeah.
How about since you brought that up, Adam, let's go around and talk about that a little bit, because it is one of them tough things that you really aren't ever going to find the full success until you either burn the bridge or go balls to the wall, or, pick your metaphor, but it's true. But how about for you, Renegade?
Well, I mean, I had the idea going around in my head for a while because I was working at a small processor. I was running the kill side of things, at probably slaughtering about 100 a week. And I just kept thinking in the back of my head, I'd love to do mobile processing. And I thought about starting it up as like my own side gig, and that's really the smart way to do it. If somebody's starting up their own entrepreneurial thing, get it going, build the framework, have something to fall back on. And then all the shit broke out and things changed. It was no longer about quality. Some stuff I was not okay with was happening. And I finally lost it. I was just not going to continue to work for the place I was working at. And I just walked out with no safety net, nothing to fall back on. Felt sorry for myself for about 2 days, and then said, screw it. I've got knives. I've got skill. Just started putting feelers out. Wasn't really expecting to turn it into a business. And then I had enough people holler right back at me that, no, this is something we want, that I took all that COVID stimulus money they were handing out and invested it right back into equipment, and just built from there. And just kept going. I wouldn't call myself necessarily successful. There's definitely some tough times. There's definitely some times where it's still rough, but I've been full-time with it since. And I mean, I'll pick up a little side job here and there, but it keeps me busy enough that I don't have time to just do it part-time and jump onto something else. And it's hard to do this line of work half-ass. If you're involved in it, you're in it for a day. Even if you've got something small, it's like me and Kyle have talked about this before too. Like, a lot of times we like working on larger cattle because it doesn't really matter. You do a cow, you do a goat, you do a pig, whatever. You have just as much freaking invested into cleanup as you do doing a large one. So honestly, it's going to take me 10 hours working in the shop to do a couple of pigs, or it's going to take me 12 hours doing an 800-pound steer by myself solo and then cleaning up. So why not go for broke and do the big one?
Makes sense.
I will say before.
And by the way, I think our version of full-time as butchers is probably not like what most people consider full-time either. It's like full-time extra.
Yeah, exactly. And I do want to, before I go into like when I went on my own and stuff, I want to piggyback off of what you just said about, I do agree for sure when it comes to like beef. I would rather do a massive one over doing a hang weight 500-pounder, because like I get a lot of them up here. We have a lot of people that have jerseys and all that kind of like dairy crosses and everything, because it's not a huge, like, it is an agricultural community up here, but it's also not at the same time. So it's people that have them, but they've kind of got what they got.
Shitty cows got to get slaughtered too, man.
Oh, no, exactly. And a lot of them are great. But I've gotten to the point now where I'm going in the fall and I'm starting to book out and like kind of get everything together. And it's like October's somewhat of a bust because we're going to SRF for a week. So it's like right in the middle of that. I have a regular customer I have a standing order for 2 beef a month for. I'm doing their beef, and that's really it for like beef. I'm doing mostly pigs just because of that turnaround. Like when it comes to the turnaround on pigs, I would almost rather do 10 pigs than a giant beef. You don't got to hang,
especially if you're not curing. Because if you're curing, that's a different story. Now you got a big time dilation issue.
No, that is true. But when I left, essentially it was right in the middle of COVID. We had just had, our daughter was like a month old, and I looked at the gas prices going into work at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, I'm putting $300-400 a week in my tank right now, like, because I drove an hour to work every day, and I'm like, we can't do this. And my wife finally looked at me. She's like, can you drum up enough business? And I'm like, we're gonna find out. And for a while, it was like full-time, part-time, because like part of the time, most of the time I was in the shop, and then we don't have daycare right now, and we have a newborn. So it's trying to figure stuff out and just running and gunning. But it's the only way to do it. I mean, it is. You're going to have your shitty moments. Like, you're going to have those moments where it's like, what are we doing? And how are we going to do this? But if you don't make it through those, like, it's really going to hit you if you're just smooth sailing everything. And all of a sudden that first bump's going to come along and it's like, oh boy, I wasn't prepared for that.
I don't know about you, but I had my shitty moment to work for somebody else too.
Oh yeah.
That's a good point, because you're right. Because you're going to have shitty days whether you work for somebody else or you are your own boss, right? So why the hell not be in charge of your own fate and still have shitty days? I get it. Absolutely. Right. For us, when we started our daycare in the middle of COVID, and it was just same thing. We still have bad days. There's still days where you're like, people can look at it and think, oh yeah, you got your shit together. Well, yeah, maybe, as long as you think you do, But I got a question for you, Adam. This one comes from Haas. Wants to know, what kind of livestock do you raise?
Well, right now I'm doing a Black Angus Dexter cross, all grass-fed, grass-finished. We can go into that a little bit later. In the past, I've raised like a Berkshire cross. I've tried a couple different ones. Duroc Berkshire seems to be one of my favorites. And then I also raise just big old commercial chickens. So the big old Cornish cross meat birds are the three main things that I raise or do raise here and there. I work with an entire team of Amish guys that they do some of the raising. I'm part of an Amish co-op. You can tell my great big beard, right? So in that Amish cooperative, we have several different people that are raising different things at different times. But I'm doing Black Angus, pretty much 3/4 Black Angus, 1/4 Dexter as of right now. I'm not really too breed specific, but I really like that that breed going right now. It's working out real well for me.
Any particular reason why you picked those?
Well, the Angus is just kind of, everyone knows of the Black Angus. They're easy. They're there. I like the Dexter because the Dexter will typically make it easier for the cows to birth. There's a slightly lower birthing weight. They catch up rather quickly. And so that was one of my concerns with not being a guy that grew up on a ranch or on a farm, doing a lot of stuff with cattle and birthing. I wanted them to have the most success at me not having to be right there all the time, like yanking that animal out. I want it to be a natural, easy birth. So that's one of the reasons why I went with Dexter. And it was difficult for me to find an affordable grass-fed, grass-finished bull that would work on grass. And these people, they had one, and it was inexpensive, and it looked amazing, and their animals looked amazing. And I'm like, hey, this will work perfect for my setup. So I got a little lucky there too.
Nice. And Kyle, you're raising pigs, is that right?
Yep. And we just had our first litter on farm 2 weeks ago now, or almost 2 weeks ago.
How's that going?
It is awesome. She had 13 originally. We're down to 10, but one was a stillborn right off the bat. So we're doing good, especially for hers and mine for sparrowing. But we raise Hereford, Ossabaw, Mangalitsa crosses. So our boar was an Ossabaw Island hog and Mangalitsa, and Mangalitsas are starting to come up. A lot more people are getting interested in them. Ossabaws are a little more like not well known. They actually come from, there's an island off the coast of Georgia that the Spanish dropped pigs off on their way to like settle the New World. And yeah, they're super interesting. A little bit smaller frame, smaller hams, really like great lard producers, sometimes too much lard producing. But the feed conversion rate on them is crazy. And they're also one of the only animals that can drink salt water. Like they've somehow figured that out. Not that that's important to me, but it's always a cool fact to bring up of like, dude, drink salt water. But
so what breed is it? You said, what is their name that can drink the salt water?
Osaba Island Dog.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like on the island for several hundred years as like a closed, isolated population with no outside genetic diversity. So they became very, very good at putting on fat in lean times. They were that's why their feed conversion ratio is so good. They had the scrounge for what little food they had to survive. And then when they had it, they just hog out. Right. But they also have like insanely good immune systems.
Yes.
That's probably why they're really cool to like interbreed.
Right. So that was kind of like the main reason I did with that. And it's no, I mean my boar, we actually ended up just putting him down probably about a month ago now. It sucked. But he was such a baby. Situation. He looked like he was going to walk out of the woods and murder your whole family. He was about 400 pounds, jet black. And like these Osabas, a lot of them look like wild pigs because technically they're a new domestic breed. Okay. Like they actually no longer bring them back over from the island. Like whatever pigs are on Osaba Island are going to stay there. And whatever genetics are in the United States now, that's it. Like that's all that's happening. So they look like a big wild pig. And with the Mangalitsa being super hairy, he just looked like a monster. I have his teeth right here because he
looked like a freaking Russian boar.
Wow. Yeah, he looked like a Russian boar. It was crazy. But he was a sweetheart. You'd rub him by the ears and he'd just go on his side and just want belly rubs. He was the sweetest thing. But I was thinking about that, like when you were talking about the Dexters for better birthing rates. I wanted something because the Hereford is essentially a big production breed. I think they were developed in Missouri in like the 60s.
Yeah.
And they're fantastic. And I just wanted something that had a little better feed conversion and just did better in these winters up here. Because it's like we'll get 2-foot storms. It's like not often, but it just gets cold and we get snow. And I'm like, we're going to be keeping pigs full time on some type of scale. And if we're feeding stuff over the winter, I want something that's not just going to be like housing as much food as possible to keep weight on. Like I want something that will actually put weight on and be able to finish out for the spring. So I don't know. We're playing a little Dr. Moreau action. I'm jumping in head first. Like these are my first pigs I've raised. And I'm already like, well, this is my breeding program I'm going to do.
And you've got you're raising them on pasture?
Yes, somewhat. I'm trying to at some point get into the rotational grazing setup. But right now I'm just kind of building like all my perimeter fences. So I've got 5 Hereford piglets right now. They're going to be going on a 3-acre pasture probably in about a couple weeks now once the piglets are weaned off. And they'll be my first pigs really on pasture. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Nice. We're going to bring Josh back in. There he is.
There he is.
I think I'm back. Internet blip.
That's okay. You're here. We're going to just give me 1 second.
If I jump out, I'll be back.
So I got a question. We'll start with Adam and work our way around the horn. But paper or plastic, Adam?
Paper or plastic. Personally, I'm a big fan of Cryovac, so plastic. I just feel like that's it looks better, especially when you're marketing and you're selling it. People want to see what that meat looks like, and that's your best way to show it off.
Nice. Kyle?
Plastic. But with a caveat, you need to know how to do paper. Like,
how come?
I think it's important just to know, just to understand it. Like, I know it was hammered into me when I was apprenticed. Like, literally, I would spend days where my boss would be like, well, we're slow. Go through a roll of paper, like, and just wrap. So for me, it's important because I'm like, yeah, I had to do it so everyone else does. But
it's important at Christmas.
Yes, it is also very important at Christmas. But I do think paper is a very viable option. Like, I have nothing against it, but just where I'm at now, I have a cryovac machine. I'm going to cryovac all my stuff because I just know. Like, I know it's going to look better and more than likely pack better in my freezer. But also, I always say, if you're going to get cryovac and you have a chest freezer, don't be an idiot and just rummage through your chest freezer because you're going to pop every single cryovac bag you have.
Especially with bone-in cuts.
Okay.
That's where the paper's nice because it's like you can kind of toss stuff around your freezer and it's not going to go anywhere. Like, you're not going to lose that seal because it's wrapped. If you take a hard piece of meat that's frozen, even if it's sealed, and just bang it against 3 other pieces of meat that are frozen, they're going to pop the bags.
Huh. Makes sense. And I know where Josh is coming in. I was just hoping I'd get one paper guy, but that's okay. Go ahead, Josh.
No, plastic 100%, 1000% infinity, the ends for sure. No, for all the reasons that Adam mentioned. But I agree with Kyle. I've done paper wrap a lot. We used to do it retail. Mainly, I think the reason the place that I did it at, and most places that do paper now still, the reason they do it is because it has that old timey butcher shop feel. And if you want to go to a service case and see the guy who cuts your meat, it just feels cool for him to watch that guy wrap it up in paper better than you ever could and hand it to you with the sticker on it, holding it shut. But, in my experience, those packages never meant to last in your freezer for 2-3 years without freezer burning. It's not a gap seal. If you do a good job, yeah, it can last a good long time. But if you take the best paper wrap versus a non-pop cryovac bag and you put them in the freezer for 3 years, one's going to have frost on it when you open it up and one's not.
I would take that bet.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll take that bet.
But the other thing about it is there's just too many other advantages to the vacuum seal, to the cryovac, if you ask me. It does look better for the customers. As a consumer, I like to be able to actually see what I'm thawing. I want to know before I actually thaw this thing out enough to unwrap it, what I'm actually cooking for dinner, especially if it's steaks or whatnot. And the other thing is, if you're doing a whole cow, a lot of times people are in a hurry, maybe something gets mislabeled. It's pretty obvious if that's a ribeye, not short ribs. If it's a white paper chunk, you really don't know till you open it up. There's plenty of people I've talked to pointed because they open it up and what the tag says, so ruin their plan. And then the other side of it is from the smaller processor side. I still think right now vacuum seal is cheaper for my end. It's cheaper and it's actually faster. If you've never priced them, those rolls of butcher paper, especially the ones that have a lining, so it can actually have somewhat of a seal and not just be a wet pile of crap. Man, those rolls are like $80 a piece.
I pick them up for 40.
Are they 40? Okay. Well, but if you aren't ordering them like from a bulk supply,
right?
Probably, but still $40
on Amazon. I buy them off Amazon. Yeah, I get that for sure.
Yeah, 40, especially if you aren't really good at paper wrapping.
Right.
$40 doesn't. Most people use way more paper than they need to because they have to overcompensate for not really being practiced with the wrapping. And the only way to get good at wrapping is to go through a lot of paper. $40 will buy me enough vacuum seal bags to pretty much do 2 easily, and that's buying them off of Amazon with the texture side bags to use it like your food saver type. Not even buying regular like vacuum seal bags, you can use a chamber bag, which you can get by cheaper.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you can pick up 5,000 8x10s for like $60, $80. Yeah. Like, they're not it's hard because usually I only buy cryovac bags in bulk. So it's like, I usually just go.
And if you have, which makes it a lot cheaper because you don't have to buy bags to have a texture.
Right. Yeah. So I have a regular chamber sealer, which I need.
Yeah, I'm in a position to bring a sealer with me everywhere. If I could have one, I would.
Oh, you cut out a little there, Josh.
Oh, is it better now?
I think so. Go ahead.
Slightly.
But anyways, I don't bring a chamber vac sealer with me because you know how heavy they are. They're not very portable. They're not very portable.
It's a pain in the butt, and I don't I can't haul it around. But I have, what do I have? The Backmaster 210, which is the maintenance-free one. So there's no oil pump. Like, it's just a regular electric vacuum pump, and it works fantastic. I mean, I can't tell you how many animals I've put through it. I put whole cows through it weekly, and it's a 12-inch bar, and I want to pull my whatever hair I have left out of my head every time I use it, especially when I'm like cryovacing 300 pounds of burger. And
well, because you cryo your burger too.
Oh, like it's
thing grind stuff is bad. It's too much. It's too much. You know,
well, I'm at the point now where my customers want it, and I charge for it. I'm just like, if you want it,
right.
Like, I charge. It's
a good solid 2-3 hours.
You're gonna pay for it. That's crazy.
Doesn't matter to me.
I got another one for you, Adam. I got a bunch of questions we'll work through from the community here. Said, what was the process for you to sell meat in the co-op, permits, etc.?
Well, I guess with the cooperative at very first, I was actually just working as part of them. They got their cooperative licensing. They had it kind of all up and going before I even showed up. They came to me because they're like, hey, you have this cool thing called a cell phone. You understand what we're doing, and you like what we're doing. So you know how to sell. How about you sell and work with us? I'm like, okay, I need to become part of the cooperative in order for that to happen. So as far as the process to sell the meats, number one, so in the state of Wisconsin, you need to get the county health inspector has to inspect your freezer, give you a permit for that. It needs to be outside of the home. It can't be like in the dwelling. It could be like in the, like I use a trailer. I have an enclosed trailer, have 2 freezers in my enclosed trailer. That's what goes to market with me. And so you got that. Then you have the DAPTC licensing to sell retail into the stores. So that's just another inspection. Other than that, it's really, honestly, call your local health inspector if that's something you're interested in doing. Get yourself a good butcher. Good butchers are hard to come by that know what they're doing. It's difficult. Like, can you guys confirm this? There's a lot of bad butchers out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there are so many, dime a dozen.
There's not many butchers left, and there's much fewer good left.
Absolutely.
My dad cut meat for
that my uncle taught me or something. There's so many people that it's like, oh, my uncle taught me how to cut up deer. I'll cut up your cow. There's 1,000 of those people. There are not many people that are like, no, I have been a working, practicing butcher for a decade. Those are hard to come by.
Most guys, correct me if I'm wrong here, but most guys who work in meat and retail at this point aren't much more than, they might grind a little do they even grind hamburger on location anymore? But
some do. Some of them regrind.
Yeah, I was going to say most of it comes in tubed.
It's like a coarse grind that it shows up and you just put it through. Yeah. But I mean, so I remember back as far as where my dad worked at a place called the IGA. So that's almost 40 years ago, probably 38 years ago. They would bring in entire sides of beef there. And that was still, a front-end commercial grocery store. Mm-hmm. And by the time he retired from Sobeys, which is a national chain here, about 5 years ago, he said there was almost no cutting left. Almost everything came prepackaged or almost prepackaged. And, so I can imagine that skill will get lost. What do you think, Renegade?
We call them cardboard cowboys.
Box boys.
You get in some of these different it's like this rivalry type thing. Everybody wants to call very few people are actually butchers anymore. There is a difference between a meat cutter and a butcher, and meat cutters go on. In the retail world, you're right. Most places are going pre-pack. All your big box stores, 90% of their stuff comes in pre-packed. Even the places with the service case, a lot of their stuff comes pre-packed, and do some showpiece steaks just to bring in that market of people who want to come buy the stuff. And they may do some custom cut, but most of their stuff just comes in big, large cryovac chunks. They cut it, they merchandise it, and they sell it. Nobody's really breaking down whole animals in the store anymore. The places that are doing whole animals on the store are usually small independent butchers, and a lot of those guys are raising them themselves or getting them local. So it's very, very rare. Most of the experience in whole animal butchery that I've actually had has been in the custom processing side, where it's people are bringing you their animals to butcher to specifications, and then they're taking them back. At this point in the game, at least where I'm at, the retail side of things and the actual real butchery side of things are completely diverse. They're completely.
So Chip, I'm going to call him Connor, even though it's Chip McGregor. He said, it seems that processors have the rookies doing the packaging. Is cryo easier to teach than paper?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely easier.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Put in bag, put on bar, close, cryovac.
Yeah.
Pretty much,
and that's much
basic.
Easier because, okay, my experience is exactly with Jake here. He says, I have an old food saver, yard sale find. We buy meat in bulk nowadays. Maybe it's time for an upgrade. I've had so much trouble with my food saver over the years because it sucks the juices or the blood up into the seal with seal failures. Who wants to talk about that?
I'll take it.
Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah. So we had a food saver. I used it for a little bit for like personal stuff. And I didn't use it long. I was like, all right, whatever. I'm just back to freezer paper. Because again, it's so much easier to teach someone to do that. Because again, the basics are put in bag, put on bar, close lid. Like if you're doing like a vacuum setup, like a vacuum chamber setup. Whereas with paper, like I said, when I first started, there were days where all I did was freezer wrap. He'd bring in one of those reusable grocery bags, just full of random shit like basketballs and stuff, and go wrap until they're perfect. And I appreciate that now because I can wrap hams with my eyes closed, which it all made sense. But it's to get the perfect seal. Essentially, what you're doing is, and I also plastic wrap everything before I freezer paper it. Every fold you make is essentially a wall around that meat. So if you just roll it all up or whatever, there's air spaces, there's stuff where you will get freezer burn because it has access to the air. If you really fold it and pull on every turn, it seals everything off to the point where it's like, all right, cool. Not really worried about freezer burn, at least for a couple years. But again, everything at some point will freezer burn. It is what it is.
That's probably another reason why the art or the use of paper will be gone then, is because if you can hire any Joe off the street to push a button on a cryovac machine, then why would you ever bother teaching paper, right?
Right. Oh, you better believe my kids are going to be in that shop with 2 rolls of freezer paper. I'm not letting them slide on that. I don't care.
So,
Dad, we don't even use this. I don't care.
It sounds like your buddy there kind of reminds me of, you remember dodgeball when they said if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball? So if you can wrap a wrench, you can wrap a ham. So apparently Chip says that Connor is the second toughest McGregor out there. So let me ask you another question. Any one of you can take this, but since we're talking about paper, I had a question. If you want to do a complete off-grid, or how about let's play the game of maybe you're living in kind of a bit of a collapse scenario or something, and you still want to do your own butchery. Obviously that's possible, but what kind of concessions would you have to make?
Refrigeration is going to be your biggest challenge.
Yeah,
I love how everybody makes the same face and the same noise.
Well, we all have to think. I have to sit back and go, all right, what's my first step? but then also what's my like 10th step? Because I can't. It's you got to figure it out.
It's going to depend on your climate. It's going to depend on your climate.
I think like the first thing I thought of up here is it would have to be like, because again, I've thought about this a lot. It would have to be like a mass thing where it's like, okay, on this day, we're processing this 10 head of cattle. And then it would have to be, you would have to do like what the Native Americans did, where they would dig out past the frost line or down in there where the ground doesn't get above a certain temp, like doesn't like freeze over, but also will preserve everything, wrap everything. And then throughout the summer, you just kind of got to chug along and pray that everything you did worked and you don't have just a giant pit of rotting meat. Like that's where my brain goes for like long-term feeding community kind of mindset on it. But if I was doing my own cow, like just for me personally, that would be tough. Like you're going to have to smoke a bunch. You're going to have to, I would say grind, but you're hand grinding depending on what, if you have electricity or not. Even if you have electricity, I don't care how many solar panels you got. There's no way you're running my 8-horse, like 250-pound capacity grinder. Like you could, but it's going to be tough on the system for sure.
There's a reason heritage breed animals, cattle, pigs, everything, were typically smaller. There's a reason, because you had to utilize it in a shorter amount of time. The only way to preserve that meat long term is on the hoof.
Right.
If you don't have refrigeration. And, you know, it's not, like I said, your climate, where Kyle's at, he's talking about digging down below the front. I don't have that. The closer I dig, deeper I dig, the hotter it gets because we're that much hell. I mean, I think maybe there are 2 days a year where I could hang something outside and have. So I'd have to pretty much do a whole hog roast right off the bat. Start learning things like all jerky and all freaking pemmican and things like that. You're going to have to learn to process that entire animal immediately, as quickly as you can. And you're going to have to focus on small breeds that can be dealt with, unless you're willing to actually.
What do you think,
Adam? You don't have the climate.
So one of the things that my family did. So my family is Slovakian in heritage, and they would bring every year every fall they would bring in 2 hogs into the downtown or into the city of Milwaukee. Kill the hogs in the city of Milwaukee, and they would
awesome.
The family would get together, they'd butcher them and everything, and they'd make a lot of different meals out of that, a lot of sausages. And yes, they had a freezer. But even though they had a freezer, they still used a pickling method. So they would pickle the hams. They didn't smoke them, they were fresh. But it was a salt water in these great big 20-gallon crocks, 30-gallon crocks that my cousin still has, and it was just kind of cool. Like I talked to my great aunt who's in her mid-90s, and she goes, "Oh yeah, we just take the whole ham, we dunk it in water, and you float, you put enough salt in it that you float an egg, and it would last them all winter long, you know." So, and it was cool. It was a cool area. It was probably about 55 degrees. But yeah, that's how they they cured it. So that's just one quick way. Obviously, there's the pemmicans, there's the jerkies, there's the charcuterie and such. And charcuterie isn't that difficult to do. It's so easy an idiot like me can do it.
Well, yeah. my beautiful and much more intelligent better half is upstairs watching us this evening. So what about waxing or salting the meat?
Salting for sure.
Definitely has a place, and especially with pork. Pork takes really well to the salting method. For a long time, just barrels. And that is why pork butts have the name that they have, because that was the unit of measurement for porks. 1 barrel of pork was measured as that was a butt of pork. So typically, if you had a barrel of pork shoulders, it was 1 butt of pork. So pork butt got the name. People are forks have or front.
And listen,
But
there's a reason so many wars have been fought over salt.
Yeah, because it's
To
insane
preserve meat. Like that's
now salting beef, while it can be done, it doesn't take to it quite the same way. It doesn't have the same, but it's not as good of an end product. It's better to take all that lean meat and dry it something like, or do like they do it.
So do you guys corned beef? Do you guys?
Yeah.
Yep. Is that salted beef? Is that kind of what that is?
Yeah, it's a brine. Yeah.
Okay. So it's like a pickling brine, essentially.
Yeah, essentially. Another thing I didn't think of until Adam was talking up there and made me think of it was pressure can is another good one. You can take fresh.
Oh, poor Josh. You were doing good too. It kicked you. You're
kicking your butt again.
Yeah, looks like you got a kink in his neck. He's just sitting there. So, go ahead, Kyle.
Actually, you can, if you have a fire, you can pressure can. Like if you have a pressure canner.
Yeah.
Or now, you don't even need one, really. Like there are other methods to it.
So, I mean, I'm not gonna, recommend doing something that isn't perfectly safe, but I can tell you that at least in Newfoundland, so that's not that far from Nova Scotia, they would can things like rabbit meat, and they would do it in the boiling water method, which I'm not telling you to do this, but what I'm telling you is it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours on an open roaring boil on a wood stove because it's all they had. And, I'm sure somebody somewhere got sick one time, but they did it for a long time.
Bill's character.
Yeah. The pioneers used to just have, they would build kind of like that endless soup or endless stew that they would get a fat on it and they would just let the fat coat over the top. And then I guess you learn to do what you need to do to get by, don't you?
Yeah, we're not talking about inventing something here. We're talking about like trying to reinvent the wheel. Like people have been doing this forever. We've been eating meat
for way longer.
Adam, you made pemmican within the last while, haven't you?
Yeah, I've made pemmican probably about 6 months ago was the last time I actually made any. But pemmican's a great one of the great recipes that you can do, and it's been around for such a long time, and it's just so energy packed. So pemmican is basically dried meats ground into almost like a powder or grind as much as you can. You mix it with the fat. Beef fat probably works best. The tallow of deer works well too. Kind of coats your mouth a little bit. You guys know about that. Yeah. And to add a little bit of flavor, you add some berries, and I like to add like sunflower seeds and
little sea salt.
Yeah, a little sea salt, and you make them about the size of a quarter round, and just pop them out. A couple bites, and you're on your way. It's a on the move type food. So that's one of the things I like to do. And they store really long. I actually still have some from over a year ago that I have in the fridge. I should probably do another video about those.
They say that they've lasted unrefrigerated for like a couple years, and they just get better with time. But I've never had any that I've made last that long.
Right.
That was within like a few months.
I'm pretty sure they found some that are really old at times. I was going to say, I think it was like the Antarctic expedition, but of course that's a very cold climate too. But I mean, they were designed to last because you can eat them. They wouldn't really freeze, would they, Adam? I mean, they're basically mostly fat and some meat powder, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can freeze them if you want. I mean, but you don't need to. And that's kind of the nice thing is you keep them cold. You keep them cold, keep air off of them, or keep them dry. I think that's one of the biggest things when people aren't. If you keep meats dry and you keep it so it's dry and keep it air moving around it just a little bit. It's amazing. Like there's no place for the mold to start.
No,
and if there could be some molds, and you just scrape the mold right off. unless it's black mold, and that's the only time when I'm really concerned, on my charcuterie and stuff like that.
And black mold's only going to grow in a very humid environment, and that's the thing. That's why pemmican works, because bacteria, which is really what you're worried about, doesn't grow if there's no water. So what you're really doing is, it's not like making a regular jerky. Regular jerky, you just want to eat. You want a little bit of moisture to it so you can chew it. When you're doing the pemmican, you are drying it to the point where there is so hard you can crumble it, crack it. Right. You want it to be completely devoid of moisture, and the rendered fat is completely devoid of moisture. Basically taking those two parts of it, removing all the water content and putting them back together. And because it's sealed in that fat, as long as you protect the outside layer, wrap it up. They used to wrap it in like oiled hide and skins and things like that. But basically to keep the water and keep the fat off of it, maybe they dip them in wax. And there's no water in it, nothing. So it just stayed preserved indefinitely.
Have any of you guys been talking about South Africa a lot lately? Any of you guys ever made biltong?
That's low.
Go ahead, Josh, if you come through here.
Do you hear me?
Yes, you're good.
I've not made it. That's what I was. I've not made it, but I've wanted to. I've had it, and I do, but I've not made it.
I've heard of it. Can you remind me what it is again? I'm having a hard time remembering what it is.
I think Adam. Go ahead, Adam.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's a thicker. So typically you cut it in a thicker chunk of meat, and it's cured with a salt, black pepper, and typically coriander. It's a South African way to cure meats, and it's basically a very rudimentary charcuterie, and it typically has it's kind of it's basically a thick piece of beef jerky in all reality, or it can be venison or some sort of other wild game typically.
There's usually some vinegar involved, right?
Yeah, I think there's vinegar, isn't there, or is there?
I never use the vinegar. I know there's some recipes that say, yeah, you do some vinegar. Like I said, I literally just put the seasons on it and let it just sit in the hot sun, which seems kind of weird. I'm going to eat that. I'm going to just put it out there in the hot sun.
Put that meat out in the sun and eat it later.
But if you're thinking about it, in somewhere like South Africa, how do you preserve meat? You got to look at the way that the culture is actually handled to modern stuff.
Well, again, it's also all climate. Like,
right, 100%.
I probably couldn't really just be like, I'm going to stick this meat out in the sun. It would be, even with all the seasoning on or salt and everything on it, it would be so covered in flies, and it's so freaking humid here.
They have what they call a biltong box. What they do, they'll build like a screen box, and a lot of people even do it in their house. There's people who will just hang it up in a spare room. As long as the thing is having good airflow around it.
Right.
That's what matters. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's always so good
strings through it.
Do a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Where I grew up on the East Coast, on the Bay of Fundy, like things like herring, like heron fish, they'll come through, for maybe a week, 2 weeks at a time, and throughout the year, and that's it. And you get thousands, hundreds of thousands of them. But that was, so they smoked it or dried it. So you'd have salt fish, which they just fillet the fish and they'd lay it out on a screen and cover it in the sun. They'd put salt on it, and it was, it's chewy, but I like the smoked stuff. They would basically just, again, flop it open and then put it in a smokehouse, and it's just as soft. It's not really cooked, but you can eat it just that way. It's some of my favorite. That's the way they would refrigerate or would preserve fish so that you'd have it for the year round.
Yeah. Smoking's been a thing forever. Like, it was almost like a counter, like kind of one of those mistakes that was made, I think, where it was like, all right, we're going to cook this. Hey, that friggin' deer leg we cooked like 3 days ago, there's no flies on that. Do you think we can still eat it? Oh, look at that. Like, it's just progressed over time. Like, that was probably that was the first preservation method for sure, was smoking stuff.
Be like the first guy who tried mushrooms. He's like,
right,
you go ahead and try it and see what happens. Haas wants to know. Go ahead, Josh. Haas wants to know any safe nitrates to recommend. a lot of talk with cancer triggers and nitrates. And yeah, Josh has a smile. I think just about anybody who has eaten keto or carnivore over the years is probably over the whole nitrates thing. But anybody want to take that one? Or does anybody know much
I don't
about
have a ton of
nitrates?
experience with them, but I mean, I use the pink salt for all my bacons and stuff like that. And I also know you can also use celery powder, which is like a natural. What is it? That one is that the nitrite? It's one of them. There's nitrate and nitrite, but the celery powder is a more like you're not just putting the pink salt in it. Which, if you've ever made corned beef and you put that pink salt in, that's what makes it keep its like weird red color when you boil it. Again, it pickles it. So you're pickling your insides when you. Okay. So it's one of those things. It's a toss-up, but it makes really good bacon.
Do you know much about that, Adam?
So I prefer to use pink salt. Typically depending on what the recipe is, number 1 or number 2 prog powder. It's, to me, it's such a small amount for the volume. Like, what was it? The one of the butchers I work with, he does 25 pounds of meat and puts in 1 ounce of this of the cure salt, right? So it makes a better product, in my opinion, than just using salt. Can you just use salt? Absolutely. I've done it where I just use salt. I don't use any sort of nitrite or nitrate, but I think it turns out a little bit better, at least for my typical my taste buds that has been, around nitrites my whole life. I think it just comes out to be a better product. Is it necessary? No, you could probably get away with just, if that's something you're concerned about, just use salt, and you should be good. But there's a reason why people have used nitrites and nitrates, and it's used to be naturally occurring in the salt itself. So that's why we even started using it. It's been used for hundreds, if not thousands, of years.
Cool.
Yeah. It's I've done whole episodes on it, actually. Nice. But yeah. Well, first of all, there's nitrates that break down to nitrites. Nitrites are the short. Nitrates eventually break down to that. So in your long cure stuff, you use nitrates because they will break down to nitrite slowly, which when you're doing stuff that's like air aged and hung, that's typically with that. I use the pink salt. I prefer to do so because we know for sure at a very, very minimal amount, scientifically, the exact amount we're putting in. I don't think much when it comes down to the nitrites in your diet. If you actually dig into it, most of those studies are kind of bullshit. We're preaching the fear about it. I think, though, too much of anything is a bad thing. The contention I have with celery is that we're trying to make it sound natural, and the reason we can do that is because celery powder is classified by the FDA as not a curing agent, as a flavoring. So it's a stupid thing, and the only because it's from a plant, we don't really know how much nitrites are in it. So we actually have to use way more to ensure that it achieves the same. So you're probably eating 2-3 times much by eating the uncured or stuff that uses the celery. The other side about that, though, too, is if you're worried about having things like nitrites in your diet, stop eating a bunch of the vegetables because they're actually occurring in most of the vegetables that you eat, too. That's where we source the natural versions of them. So the reason that it's there, though, very important. The reason it's there for preserved meats is when you have meat that is held between 40 and 140 degrees for more than 4 hours, you can get a really bad thing that happens, botulism. The botulinum toxin exists on every you touch. It's in the air you're breathing right now. It's when it actually begins to propagate and it creates a toxin. Not saying you're going to die. You'll probably be fine your entire life without having a problem, but it takes one time and you don't recover from botulism. There is no cure. So I always use it because I'm not going to be the guy that gave somebody's kids lockjaw and they died. And I'm going to use what I know I can measure and get it done the right way. And what Kyle mentioned as far as the color, the corned beef or whatnot, if you ever buy lunch meat, deli meats, and it's got that cool pink color to it, you're like, turkey's not usually pink, but it is. It's because the nitrites in the cure. And they add that to it because while it hangs for that amount of time, below that 140 degrees for an extended period, that's the safe measure. And what it does is it changes the actual pH enough that the botulinum toxin can't be produced because it doesn't get a replicate.
Yeah, I'd forgot about that, but my wife just reminded me that they actually would smoke the mackerel in their chimneys down where we had our house before we moved out here. So, I mean, it's a way to, it's kind of like the same way of people wrapping their water jacket pipe around their exhaust pipe. It works, right? Did anybody catch that post from Dr. Barry the last couple of days? It said that bacon actually has more potassium than bananas.
No, it's awesome.
God.
I was like, that's fucking, isn't that great? Yeah. I was quite impressed with that. I was like,
ask Dr. Barry his thoughts on nitrate.
When you guys were talking, I was thinking of that. So, do you know Dr. Ken Barry at all, Adam?
I've heard of him. I think I've seen some of his stuff on the Instagrams and face spaces and all that other good stuff.
He runs in our circles, and he cool. Yeah, he has some opinions. I appreciate him. He's a smart individual. So let's see, what do we got for some questions here? Next, we got how about a pig question? Cabot said, my nephew is doing Idaho pastured pigs, Central Iowa. I bought one because my nephew. Good, bad pigs for this area.
I think good pigs for the area for sure. Like, they're more of a grazing pig. So if you're doing pasture pigs, that's perfect. The only issue is they do have a little bit longer grow out time. And again, they're one of those pigs that will put on fat. So if you're giving these things a lot of extra calories, you're going to have a lot of extra fat. And it's going to take, instead of if you had like a Yorkshire or Hereford or one of those production breeds where you can get them to 210 pound hang weight in 6 months, now you're going to have something that's going to be a bit of a smaller carcass and dress. Like, to get it to a 200 pound hang is going to be tough on an Idaho pasture pig. But if you did, it would be like over a year for sure.
Yeah. Slow. That's what you need for pasture.
Yeah. They're just genetically bred to the point now where they don't root. Like, they're not going to go and tear up your pasture and destroy it. They're going to eat they're just going to graze like a cow or like a ruminant. Like, that's their main thing.
If they get a little bit light on graze, they will root.
They will,
but not by default.
But it's not their go-to. Like, they're
going to go for the easy meal.
The 5 Hereford piglets I have out there right now, their paddock is destroyed, and they've been in there for maybe a month. And it's just turned over.
They're just doing it for fun.
Yeah, just for fun. Getting all the bugs and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I grew up right in.
Oh, we lost him again.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. That would definitely be a breed in Central Iowa. I've got a lot of family up there, and I grew up not far from there. And that's definitely a good pick.
So we've been talking some more about pasturing. Let's get Adam in on this. Why grass, Adam? This is where his eyes light up and he gets all excited. But what is the benefit of grass fed? Because I know, when I go by A&W right now, they advertise, guess what? Grass fed beef. Well, why the hell should I even care about that?
Well, properly done grass fed, grass finished beef can have a lot of great flavors. And I specify that properly done grass fed.
Me and Josh both nodded at the exact same time. You said properly, we both went, there it is. All right.
Yeah. So
and grass fed, grass finished. That's a whole nother.
Yes.
Yeah. So I do grass fed, grass finished. I work with a whole cooperative of guys that do. Besides the Amish guys, I'm also part of another nationwide cooperative called the Grass Fed Cooperative, and we're very stringent on doing grass fed, grass finished. We're actually in the process of creating the first what we consider the first true third party verification for grass fed, grass finished beef. So it's difficult to find that, right? It's frustrating sometimes, trying to go through spending all that money trying to find the right farmer. But with that, when you do find that, you're going to still have fats. It's not going to be as much as on a grain finished animal, but you're still going to have fat on that animal. You're going to have more beta carotene. You're going to have more minerals in that meat, in that fats. I think the biggest thing to me personally is knowing that that animal on that land is going to, once it's properly done, as it moves across that land, it's going to be creating and getting all those flavors of whatever it eats. And there's actually some scientific studies that find that if you're eating foods that are local to where you live, you're actually going to take those flavors in. There's a terroir. It's a fancy word that we always talk about wines with, right? The terroir is to describe the flavor of the land. Beef and pork and so many other animals out there, just like wine, have these awesome flavors that we get when it's properly done and allowed to really take in what that land is providing, all those minerals, the salts, the vegetation that land can provide. So you're going to have a better experience, a better culinary experience eating that animal, I believe, when it's a grass-fed, grass-finished animal. That's my opinion. At least eat something local, get to that local farmer, get to that local rancher, and start working with guys like that. I'm sure Kyle and Josh, if you're in their area, they can hey, go to this guy over here.
Come to me.
There you go. Go to Kyle.
And I think something that's overlooked in that, I think that was a perfect representation of that. And it, for sure, I think something that gets overlooked when you also people talk about rotational grazing and having bigger pastures, grass-fed, all that. These animals are moving. They're doing what animals do and move around and build muscle. And for those who don't know, meat is muscle. If you just put something in a pen, and yes, you're going to feed it grass because hay is grass, and just pump it full of corn, it's not going to move because it's going to be pumped full of calories and everything, and it's just going to be super fatty and just there. If you get an animal that's running around the pasture, playing, moving across the landscape, or doing something, it's working all those muscles and building it all.
So,
Absolutely.
okay, I want to put this out here. How mad do you guys get when you hear that something like a veggie burger is the environmentally proper choice? Adam rolls his eyes. So you go ahead, Adam, because you look like you're going to turn red right now.
It honestly doesn't piss me off that much. I just know there's a lot of ignorance out there. People are going to eat whatever they feel they want to eat, and they're eating from a good place, right? They're thinking when they eat that they're doing something good. That person is. I feel bad for them because they're being lied to. That when you're looking at a quality animal done out on pasture, that you're going to that animal is building up grasses, and building those grasses done properly, those roots go down deep. Alfalfa. Okay, so that's one of the main crops that I have out there, main grasses. Alfalfa can have roots down 17 feet down into the ground. Now you start going something more natural. I'm sure all the way from up here in Wisconsin, all the way down there in Texas, big blue stem. Big blue stem was something 15 to 30 feet down into the ground. That's all that grass is going down deep. Do you know what happens when you have grass that goes down deep? It puts carbon. That's carbon sequestration into the ground right there. By having animals that are going over it, not tilling up the land every year to plant corn or soybean. Once again, I'm not against those guys. Okay, fine. You want to do that? That's fine. That's not what I'm doing. That's not what I believe. And so to sit there and say that we're going to take that corn and that soybean that has a taproot about maybe 18 inches at most, that's going to be put more carbon into the ground, and that we're going to then dig that back up, mix all that carbon, put it back into the atmosphere when we till it, and we're going to take all that soybean, all that corn, and we're going to make this veggie burger for you and say, here, this is healthy for you. And I guess we're all, I like going on and off on the carnivore diet. I feel better when I'm on the carnivore diet. I feel bad for those people with all that extra crap that they put into those veggie burgers.
Well, it's not even
all the preservatives and everything else. You want to talk about nitrates? I think there's nitrates in some of those things. So,
there has to be.
I don't know. I don't go near that.
Well, it's not even that they're actually just using like the veggies. They're making like oils out of them and then reconstituting them into these things. Like
Oil City.
it's not like there are some veggie burgers. My wife was a vegetarian up until she was pregnant with our first daughter. So it's like they were in the house, and there were some that were like looked decent, and it was like they were made with like black beans or whatever. And I was like, whatever, just do whatever you want. By the way, here's an actual hamburger that's better. Just letting you know.
One ingredient,
beef.
So I just going to put it out there. This is a good suggestion, life pro tip from Michael Leonito. We call him Leo's. He said that the best way to eat a veggie burger is on top of an all beef patty with cheese. So there you go. But so talking about eating local, how can eating local be an environmentally sustainable principle for beef, for instance, right? Because that's, I mean, I really don't care, but that is the talking point of today. Everybody wants to, zero carbon or travel the least amount of distance. So how can you kind of wrap your mind around farming or ranching and make it environmentally sustainable? What do you think, Adam?
Well, number one, did you know that half of our beef right now is coming from like South America and other countries? We're shipping in half of our beef. So we don't know how their practices are in other countries typically. We have some ideas. We don't know how they're butchered in other countries, but we're shipping all that beef in refrigerated containers to the U.S. Then what do? We go and we cut it up, and we go, well, it was cut up here, it was packaged here, it was made from a roast into a steak, and now it is a product of the U.S. So right there,
wow,
it's so insane. Like when you get the nitty-gritty of it, it's nuts. Tyson, what is it? What are the other ones?
JBS.
Yeah.
JBS
Brazil is one of the biggest exporters of beef that there is.
In Argentina.
Cargill. Yeah. Cargill's another one.
Cargill's another one. Yep.
So I live in the height of beef country here, so I mean everything we eat is local, right? But
just because you buy it, they live in the heart of beef country. That doesn't mean the meat you buy at the store, the big box store, is your local beef. More than likely, you're
buying local beef.
I am buying, but yes, I totally get it because if I go to Walmart, I have no preconceived notions that's coming from anywhere local. I won't say it, but
this question came up in my Telegram the other day too about that. They were asking about ground beef was on sale with these one folks, and how do I know if it's local? I'm like, it's honestly probably not. And I did like 10 minutes of internet research on just the label from the company. And I was like, yeah, it's almost certainly from Mexico and probably countries and ground together. The other side though, but to answer the original question about the environmental and, the carbon sequestering and the local, think about it. If you look at their statistics of how much carbon agriculture actually generates, those statistics are all fucked up because the second biggest contributor to those greenhouse gases is transportation. Think about the fact that not only is all of that beef produced primarily outside of the U.S., or we produce it here and then ship it somewhere else because people want to buy American beef. So there's a huge amount of transportation that goes on there. Even locally, we're taking that meat and we're transporting it to packing houses 1,000 miles away, cutting it up there, sending it out to processing facilities another couple hundred miles away, and then transporting it from there to all the local retail stores. And you're getting your happy ass in your little car and transporting your butt every damn night because you don't know how to use a freezer to the grocery store to buy that shit. So transportation is your number one thing. The other side of it comes down to with the grass-fed side of things, and I have no problem with grain finished beef. That's what people want to do. But the typical model, this feedlot model we're using right now, how much transportation comes down to not only harvesting that grain, planting that grain, how much fuel a combine goes through, hauling it, packaging it, and then you going and picking it up or having it hauled to you from your local feed store. So transportation makes up 90% of that conflated statistic that shows how much greenhouse gas is produced by agriculture. It's because we're doing agriculture wrong.
Right. I also think it's important to point out that everyone who's preaching about how cow farts are going to kill the world are taking their private jets to go talk about how cow farts
how for you.
So it's
they also don't like almost the exact same amount of cattle that are currently grazing in the United States. It's an almost identical number to bison that we all killed off to get rid of Indians. Right. That used to live here. And guess what? Cow farts weren't really a problem when we had thousands of buffalo roaming.
No.
Nobody was caring about that. What?
How about, all right, I got one from Hunter here. This is a little different, but I'm going to ask. No, I mean, anyway, what do you do differently to preserve the hides?
I don't.
Yeah, okay. I have all the stuff to do it. I just haven't. I've done some rabbits, and there's a whole bunch of different methods. There's soaking methods. There's the brain method where you literally take the brain and rub it into it, and there's a whole bunch of different chemicals you can buy now that make it pretty easy.
I'm just going to shout out Steve from Red Moose Farm. He just said, "Hey, Tim, couldn't sit down to watch. Too busy getting shit done, but can't wait to catch the replay." And he got his silver shipment in the post. So awesome. I'm glad that's all sold out.
Awesome.
So the workshop silver's done until the apocalypse currency comes out. But it's good to see you. I don't get to see him in here too often, but it's nice to see. So, okay, what do we got? Next one. Anybody ever smoke fish? Because I haven't. I've seen it done, but I haven't done it.
I haven't. I've seen it done.
Okay.
What I can't keep damn things lit, no matter what I do.
Go ahead, Adam.
So the way so the two main fish that I end up smoking around here is the whitefish, and I'll do like the trout and salmon out of Lake Michigan. And when I do that, I personally, all I do is I do a 1 cup of white sugar, 1 cup of brown sugar, and 1 cup of just like a canning salt. And I brine mine for 12 to 32 hours, and then I just put it on a nice smoke, and that's about it. It's super, like I always say, stupid easy to do, and it's easy to do. You can get fancier with it with seasonings and stuff. You can get less fancy with it and just use salt, but that's the main brine that I use.
That's easy. That's cool to know. I got 2 questions that One Step Closer gave us from the Telegram group earlier today. So first one, can beef bacon be cured like pork belly? I've never asked. Yes. Okay. Yep. Everybody's shaking their head. Who has done it before?
I've done it before. I want to.
Okay. Yeah, how about you? Go ahead, Renegade.
It's definitely doable. It's the same process, and the beef bacon is really about the same cut equivalent to what's on pork. Well, it's a portion of what would be that belly. Beef bacon is a little bit different. It's going to be firm, but the process for curing is exactly the same.
Have you done it before, Adam, at all, or tried?
I haven't tried making my own. The processor that I use, they make it out of the short ribs. They don't do it out of the belly. They do it out of the short ribs.
That makes sense.
Slightly chewier, but honestly, at very first it tastes just like your pork bacon, except it has a little bit more of an irony flavor to it. It's super good. So, Tim, next time you swing on through, I'll throw you a pound or two.
Yeah, I might. You got me all excited. You talking bacon and meat, but we're gonna do. So I'm heading down south to Tennessee to Self-Reliance Festival, and I'm going to be going through Nate and Aaron, who are in Illinois, but it's not I think I can probably swing by. I'd love to come by and have a bourbon with you for sure. So I got another one here. Yeah, I said now I'll find a reason to swing through. You're right, I will. Okay, what do we got here? This was the other one from One Step Closer. Is getting the best knives or knowing how to sharpen them more important?
Yes.
I knew you'd say that. It depends, but no, yeah. Go ahead, Renegade.
Knowing sharp necessary.
Oh, we lost
I
him.
see him. I'm freezing up. Here I am.
I'll take it. Or I'll jump.
Go ahead there. Yep. Go ahead.
Yes to both. Start off really well. Like start off with a good Victorinox is one of the best for sure. That's just one of the most well-known ones. But there's also a bunch of random ones. Like I don't even remember what my boning knife, the brand is, but it's some European company that just works really well. But once you buy those knives, you need to maintain them. It can't be something that you use a ton and then just wash it and toss it on the shelf. I sharpen my knives before I use them every single time. And if I don't, I'm cussing myself the whole time. And it's not even like this is annoying. It's like, no, you're going to stab yourself. The couple times that I've stabbed myself, it was the end of the day. The knife was getting dull and I didn't want to go hone it or sharpen it up. So I just powered through it. Because it's when you're really when you're breaking something down, the knife is doing most of the work. You shouldn't be putting a ton of energy into that. You're guiding the knife. The sharpness of the knife and whatever angles you're doing are what are actually making the cuts. So when all of a sudden you don't have that super sharp knife that's going to be able to get through the seams better and you're wrenching on a bone to try to get around it, there's a much higher probability that knife is going to go off that ham bone and go straight into your thigh.
Ask me how I know.
That makes sense.
You can't say that. You were playing with swords.
Yeah, you stabbed yourself
how
with a katana.
You know how many times I've stabbed that was not a katana. I've stabbed myself in the thigh with my boning knife.
Oh yeah.
At least three. At least it happens. It's gonna happen. If you play with knives for a living, you're gonna screw up and it's gonna happen. But it's usually, like you said, when you're trying to work too hard, you're tired, you're done. The other important thing about that too, everything Kyle said, don't just learn to maintain the edge. Learn how to hone your knife. It maintains that edge while you're working with it. Learn what honing the knife is for, why you do it, and continually do that. And have it actually honed and that edge straight before you sharpen it, because then it'll sharpen better. The knife's going to last longer. But like Kyle said, start with a good knife. But the best knife in the world, there's no knife you can buy that is just not going to need sharpened. You're going to need to learn sharpen. And I would actually learn sharpening skills now with their shitty kitchen knives, then go out and buy a really good set of knives and have no idea what the hell they're doing to maintain them.
And really good sharpening stones. I mean, you can get by with the Cabela's tiny tri-stone that's this big. If you're using a knife a lot, go ahead and buy one of the big boys that it's you're really going to be using it. It has the replaceable stones where you can once they've worn out, you can put new stones in. Because again, it's worth it. It's worth every penny.
You'll cuss when you pay for it, but you'll never be mad when you have it.
Yeah.
Do you, Renegade? Do you have a brand of knife that you recommend?
It really depends. I've always been a Victorinox guy. Recently, though, I've actually started recommending the Cold Steel has a commercial line. I didn't until a couple. I picked up one of their bones. It was cheap on Amazon. I really like the grip.
Okay.
Surprisingly, the steel's pretty damn decent. I recently, just for this last beef I was working on, I had to order their scimitar knife with breaking knife. It's like a 10, 12 inch. We're doing some of the just kind of trial it. I was like, I bought the boning knife. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to start recommending it. You can get on Amazon for, depending on the size of the knife, from the $20 to $30 a piece.
Nice. What about you, Adam? Are you a knife guy?
Of course, I'm a knife guy. I think you can't be on the show and not be a knife guy, right?
You can't be up there and not be a knife guy.
I have a couple of Victorinox. I like them. One of the ones I kind of found that I don't know who makes it for them, but it's Outdoor Edge. It's an inexpensive set for us guys that are butchering deer. It's like a 7-inch boning knife, and they have like kind of a heavier duty. It's like a gutting knife, but it works well to sit there and do some of the cuts. Otherwise, I do have a couple of my other butchering knives that are Victorinox to do the finishing up, but I do most of my cutting with one of those. They're sharp. They're good quality for the price. It's like $35 for the kits. And the way it comes around, it has a sheath that it belts around your belt, or snaps around your belt. So you have it right there on your side. It also acts as a little bit of a guard also, so that when you're coming down and you have this big shield there. Not that you want that to happen, but yeah, it works. It's a good kit for the price, but they stay sharp with the sharpener that they have. But once again, get the best knife that you can afford. I like this little kit because, hey, I can give it to someone and they screw it up. Okay, it's not a big deal. I'll figure out that knife. But are you guys real particular about loaning knives out too? Like I don't loan out.
The one thing I don't do. Yeah.
Yeah. No. If you're ever around the butcher, don't just walk up and grab a knife.
No.
No.
Yeah, my wife doesn't even touch the knives. She doesn't even. Yeah. She doesn't want to play with that because she knows I keep them like stupid most of the time.
So
it's like asking your mechanic to borrow his wrench. He's going to look at you like, kidding?
Really? Come on.
No.
Yeah. Kyle, I'll get you to touch on this one. And then I got one more question for each of you before we get you guys to do your closeout here. So 3 knives. If you had to pick the top 3 types of knives, as in I'm going to interpret they mean what 3 types of shapes are. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, if I only could choose the 3. Now, are we talking? Now I'm thinking too far into it because I'm thinking of, am I talking about something just 3 knives to completely slaughter and break down a cow?
Yep.
Or
that's how we're going to go.
I would have to go with a 6-inch Skinner. Like there's no way possible I would go into skinning a cow with just a boning knife. You can do it. It's not going to be fun. Yeah, exactly. I've done it too, but again, it's not fun. And that's essentially, it has more of a swoop on the blade with a fatter end on it. So you're able to keep tension on the hide and get a good sweep with the blade. And it just works out so much better. And then along with that slaughter, I really like, and I put it in that link that I sent you. It's the Geyser Prime. It's a 6-inch rigid blade boning knife. I've used the Victorinox forever. I still use them every time I'm in the shop, but I really, really like having that rigid blade that doesn't have a lot of flex to it. I'm able to leverage a lot more and do a lot more. So I would have to say that one. And then moving over to starting to actual break down and cut the animal. Again, I'd keep that 6-inch boning knife. And the only thing I'd add to that is like a 12-inch breaker. Again, Victorinox makes a really good one. Those ones are kind of, you can pick one of those up fairly inexpensive with a good edge and keep it. But yeah, I would say that's what, if I needed just 3, those would be my 3.
Okay. So I got a question for all 3 of you. I'll get each of you. Well, you can take long as you need to answer. It's not bad or anything. But so, all right, we'll start with Adam. Either go into a restaurant or at home. What is your pick for if you got to live off of one steak for the rest of your life? What cut is that going to be, and how are you going to cook it?
Oh man, I guess my favorite steak is going to be the chuck eye. The chuck eye, to my opinion, it's one of the most underrated steaks. It's kind of hidden. A lot of times the butcher is going to sit there and go, it's a lot of work to do that. I don't know how much work it is to do, but it has a lot. It's slightly chewier than your ribeye, but it has a lot more flavor. It has that chuck roast flavor to it. And how am I going to make it? S&P, salt and pepper. A good steak, salt and pepper. I like it's easiest. I guess I do it on a regular basis. So my easy way to do it is I take a little bit of lard or some sort of fat, put it in the cast iron pan just until it just starts to smoke a little bit, and I sear both sides of it, a couple minutes on each side. Let it sit for a couple minutes and down the hatch. But that's kind of my fast way to cook one of those steaks.
Are you an internal temperature kind of guy?
No, it needs to be moving on. I like my steak so that a good vet can bring it can put it back in the field.
Perfect. Okay, cool. All right, Kyle, what do you got?
I'm going to cheat the system a little bit, and I'm going to say
there's no rules. Go ahead.
I'm going to say chuck roast.
Oh, did we lose Kyle? He's been all night.
Kyle caught whatever I had.
There he goes. Yeah, you got the bugs.
Did you lose me? Seriously?
You said chuck roast. Yeah,
and
then you froze.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know. I'm going to go chuck roast because I can use it for multiple different meals because I can just then break that down into steaks, get the chuck eyes out of it, and pretty much do anything. I just did a video on chucks on my YouTube channel this week. I think the chuck is the most versatile primal on a cow. You can get, I used to remember every single one, but it's like, I think you can get like 7 or 8 cuts out of the chuck primal alone, if not more. And you can do anything with it because everyone just looks at it as burger at this point. Burger or pot roast.
Idiots.
But you can get the chuck roast. You can bone out the neck. You can leave the neck bone in and have that as a roast or some type. Keep the entire blade on and cut steaks. Do 7-bone steaks, 7-bone roast. Take the blade off. You got flat irons. You got mock tenders. Again, you got your chuck eyes. You can debone it. You can have a chuck roll. Cut those into smaller steaks. Then out of some of the smaller muscles, you can pull the Denver steaks off. You can make stir fry. You can make stew. There's so much going on in there. And I said it in the video that I did, that it's that was when I was learning, that was the Hercules climb to figure out, start breaking down chucks. And when I finally felt confident enough to do it, I looked at the head cutter and I'm like, send me every chuck. And I did chucks for 8 months straight of just I'm going to do every single one of these till I can do these as fast as humanly possible and get whatever I can off of them. Because
poor Kyle. Perfect all night. And then he just
am I going back and forth again?
You're good. There you go.
Just that last little bit.
Just that last second.
All right. That sucks. But no, it's if you're looking at from a whole animal perspective, you're pulling off a chunk that has the shoulder blade, a massive chunk of meat, that's the chuck, and then the neck. So you're looking at 3 different bone styles that are all completely connected that you have to be able to bone out around all of them. And it's what?
I just like that Tim asked about steaks and Kyle picks a quarter of a cow.
Yeah.
Well, you know what it is? You went so big with your answer that Big Vegan came in and tried to shut you down twice.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Finally, protesters.
Yes.
All right, there, Renegade. What is your choice, brother?
Man, if there's no rules and we're gonna stick to steak, I'm gonna kill all of the cows because I'm a greedy bastard. And I'm gonna say oyster steak.
Oyster steak?
Oh, come on.
It's one of those rare butchers. You know, put two of them on the whole animal. I'm gonna need two of them, but just like a pepper, hot cast iron, let them rest. I'm feeling fancy. There's no steak in my opinion that tastes better. But yeah, there's no steak on the animal that tastes like gas meat.
Oyster steak. I caught most of it. Salt and pepper, a little bit of butter, right?
About the same way that what Adam said, and the butter's option.
Okay.
Patty cut. Yeah, just serious.
Yeah, repeat where it comes from.
People know about it.
Part.
Yeah, we missed where it comes from.
Yeah. Damn it.
Go ahead. You're good now, I think.
Okay. If you've ever worked on a deer, worked on anything like that, and you look at that hip bone, right? So on the inside, there's always that little bit of meat that's right over that little hole when you clear out that side of the pelvis. That little muscle itself, that's the oyster steak. There's two of them on the whole animal, and there's a reason you don't see them sold retail. The butchers would take them home for themselves or for dinner because they put them in the figured out what they were with it. There's only 8 ounces of it on the whole cow.
People would fight over it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, boys, this has been fun. This was a resounding success. K-Bonk wants to know what my pick is. I'm old-fashioned and classic, but a ribeye for sure. I just fatty and rare as hell, and I salt and pepper, grill it on the barbecue, and then I put a little bit of melted butter on top of it and let it sit for about 10 minutes before I cut into it. And I learned that from Renegade because I used to try to eat it as fast as, come off the grill, and you'd end up losing all the juice. So now I force myself. I get Alexa to set a 10-minute timer, and I sit there and just vibrate until I can bite it. So, yeah. So let's go around the horn here, boys. Adam, plug the hell out of whatever you have. How can people find you? How can they support you? Give you money because you don't hate money, that sort of thing.
All right. Well, you can get a hold of me on modernfrontier.com, modernfrontier.com. That's my website. The other websites, if you're not local in Wisconsin area, I am part of a nationwide cooperative called the Grass-Fed Cooperative. My buddy Chip McGregor, the toughest of the McGregors. He's another one of my partners in that cooperative, and we're building a better beef system, and we're going to expand to pasture-raised pork and pastured chicken and everything else, but we're making I like it. Great to meet everyone. Great. I guess I got a drink to that. But so I'm also on TikTok as A Modern Frontier. You can get a hold of me, amodernfrontier@gmail.com. And like I said, check out a Grass-Fed Cooperative, grassfedcooperative.com. If you aren't using a local farmer or rancher to get your meats, we'll get you that quality farmer rancher to you. And if you know one of these other guys like Kyle and the Renegade down there, talk to them. Have a conversation with one of these guys that is out there doing it, someone that you trust, and get out there, start buying that local meats, because you're absolutely going to love the different flavors. You're going to save yourself more money in the long run, and you're going to force yourself to cook some amazing food that you wouldn't do otherwise, because you're going to get some cuts that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So that'd be most of my gist there. But yeah, it's been fun here, guys.
Thanks, Adam. Go ahead, Kyle.
All right. So you can find me on everything at Backwoods Butcher 603. We're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. For those following me on TikTok, Lord, give me strength. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know what's happening, but we're working on that. I've got some farm maintenance videos coming out this week on the YouTube channel. If you are in the New Hampshire area, we are up here in Effingham. Our shop is called The Body Shop, and you can find that on Facebook as well. I don't usually promote the Facebook just because it's, I don't know. I don't have it really set up for this new world I'm in. But yeah, and then we also have a podcast live every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Meet the Critters. And that has also taken some evolutionary turns along the way. And we're working towards just having farmers, producers, homesteaders, just everyone who's kind of in this life of producing their own food on. And we just kind of shoot the shit and have conversations. It turns into a therapy session half the time of just like, man, this sucks, but we love it so much, and we're going to continue to do it because it's the greatest thing we've ever done. But we're going to complain about it because we can. We had Blakesley Akers. He was in the chat tonight. We just had him and his wife on last night. We had a great conversation. So you can catch that again at 8 p.m. live on YouTube on Saturdays, but you can also listen to it on every podcast app, Fountain, all of them. So come find me. I'm fun.
And one thing that Kyle likes to keep on the down low, his name is Backwoods Butcher. It's not just his work name, it's also his independent wrestling name. Yep. So you can see him every third Sunday at your local VFW or Legion. He wrestles for $10 or hot dogs, whatever is the better deal. So
I'm the heel. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Renegade?
I'll try to be quick if I blip out. Just know you can find me pretty much everywhere. If you see Renegade, it's not me, let me know so I can pick him up. But renegadebutcher.com. You can find me on mostly all the social media places. Best place to probably get me, though, except for lately, I've been out of touch. But the Liberty Meat chat on Telegram. You go t.me/Liberty Meat. Good group of people. And also another great place if you want to do like Adam was talking about finding your local producers. Ton of people in there. The network. We got people from all over the country, all over the world, and people who are doing exactly this. It's also where you go to learn about raising or producing and getting into this yourself. That's what the mission is. I have a podcast. You can catch me every Tuesday. It's going to be 6 p.m. The Renegade Butcher. And I'm also working on Renegade Butcher Seasonings. You can check that out. Go check it out. I've got a bunch of different stuff. I've got more blends I've got to get up, and I've got a bunch I need to get shipped out. So we'll keep going.
You came through good there, Josh. You did great. Well, boys, thank you. This was incredible. This is be the first, hopefully, of many different roundtables we do here at the workshop. So, yeah, if you guys want to hang in the back for a second, I'll close up, and I'll be right back with you, boys.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Got it.
Well, look, there's Adam. Isn't that funny? I did that to him again.
Adam is the new Tim.
He gets up in the corner. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. This has been an idea that's been gestating in the back of my brain for a while. I've been wanting to pull it together, and I wasn't quite sure how we were going to do it. And then I realized, just do it, and we'll figure out the rest as we go along. And that's exactly what we did. And I had, I want to say 3 fine gentlemen. Yeah, they were. I'm not going to bust Kyle anymore tonight. He's too good for that. But this was just too much fun, guys. I appreciate you all. And absolutely, get out there and support all of these fellers. They're all making a living with meat, making content on the side. So in any way, shape, or form that you can support them, get out there and do it. All their links are in the description tonight, guys. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.